Welcome to our channel, where every coin has a story, and some of those stories are worth a fortune. Get ready for Roosevelt dimes so rare, they've earned their place in numismatic history as true modern-day legends. These are the small coins turning heads, breaking records, and rewriting what we thought we knew about pocket change. Some coins are rare because they're ancient. Some are rare because they were never meant to exist. And then there's the 1960 Roosevelt dime with no mint mark, a modern US coin, born from a mistake, that turned 10 cents into over $100,000. Let's break down one of the most intriguing and valuable Roosevelt dimes in American numismatics, the 1960 no mint mark Roosevelt dime. This coin isn't just a rare variety, it's an ultra-scarce anomaly that somehow slipped through quality control at the US Mint. It looks ordinary at first glance. But make no mistake, this is one of the most elusive Roosevelt dimes ever produced. In 1960, Roosevelt dimes were struck at multiple mint facilities, including Philadelphia and Denver. Dimes from Philadelphia carried no mint mark, as was standard at the time. Dimes from Denver, on the other hand, were supposed to have a small D on the reverse side of the coin, right next to the torch, between the olive branch and the oak branch. That little D means everything, but a small number of dimes struck in Denver that year were produced without a mint mark. They were struck using a working die that somehow didn't receive the D mint mark before going into production. Whether it was due to human error, die polishing, or a blank punch oversight, these coins were minted, bagged, shipped out, and spent, completely unnoticed for years. This isn't just an ordinary mint error. It's not a double die or an off-center strike. This is a mint-made variety, a full production run of coins from the Denver Mint that look exactly like Philadelphia coins, but aren't. And it's that mystery, combined with extreme rarity, that has pushed this variety into legendary status. Now here's where things get serious. Most of these coins went unnoticed and entered circulation like any other dime. But over time, collectors began to notice subtle differences in some 1960 dimes with no mint mark. The strike quality was stronger. The finish had the characteristics of Denver-struck coins, not Philadelphia. Slowly, numismatists realized they were dealing with something truly special, a Denver coin that shouldn't exist. Once confirmed, the coin world went into a frenzy. People began checking their old coin rolls, digging through collections, and sending coins in for authentication. But despite all that searching, only a handful of genuine 1960 no-mint mark dimes from Denver have ever surfaced in collectible condition. In fact, grading services like PCGS and NGC have only certified a very limited number of examples, especially in mint state grades. The total population remains tiny, far below even some of the rarest key-date coins in the Roosevelt series. And in high grades, the rarity is magnified even more. To be clear, if you find a 1960 dime with no mint mark, don't get too excited just yet. Most likely, it's from Philadelphia. But if the strike is sharper than normal, the luster more satiny, and the die features match known Denver dies from that year, it's worth a closer look. Authentication is key. A genuine 1960 no mint mark dime from Denver will have subtle diagnostics that separate it from normal Philadelphia coins. These include slight variations in design elements, die polishing marks, and strike characteristics that reflect the minting equipment used in Denver. Collectors call this a Denver no mint mark variety, and they don't come cheap. In lower circulated grades, they can fetch hundreds or even thousands of dollars depending on condition and eye appeal. But in mint state, especially grades MS-65 and above, this coin becomes a true heavyweight in the Roosevelt dime series. One particular example, graded MS-66 with full bands designation, indicating a full, crisp strike across the torch, went to auction in 2024. Bidding was fierce. Collectors from around the world competed for what many believed could be the finest known example. The final hammer price, $112,000. That's not a typo. A Roosevelt dime, struck in Denver in 1960 with no mint mark, sold for $112,000. Why? Because rarity, condition, and error aligned perfectly. This is a coin that never should have existed, survived unnoticed for decades, and resurfaced in top condition. It tells a story of minting history, mechanical oversight, and numismatic discovery, and perhaps the most exciting part is that coins like this weren't pulled from a vault or a government archive. They were found in pocket change. In rolls. In junk silver lots. Some are probably still out there, waiting to be discovered by someone with a keen eye and a good loop. So, if you have any 1960 Roosevelt dimes sitting in a box, now is the time to take a second look. Flip it over. Check for the mint mark. If it's not there, don't assume it's from Philadelphia. Examine the coin's surface. Look at the strike detail. Compare it to known Denver varieties. And if you think it's something special, get it authenticated, because the next person to find one might be holding another six-figure coin. That's the incredible true story of the 1960 no mint mark Roosevelt dime, one of the most valuable modern dimes ever struck by the U.S. Mint. The next rare one-dime coin is one that looks completely ordinary at first glance. It's small, silver in color, and it's something millions of people have carried in their pocket without ever giving it a second thought. But among the sea of 1994 Roosevelt dimes minted at the Denver facility, there exists a rare and mysterious variety, one that's nearly impossible to spot unless you know exactly what to look for. This is the 1994 D Roosevelt dime, and one specific example of it has stunned collectors by selling for an unbelievable price. In 1994, the U.S. Mint in Denver produced over 1 billion Roosevelt dimes. These coins feature the same design that's been in use since 1946, with the portrait of President Franklin D. Roosevelt on the obverse, and the torch, olive branch, and oak branch on the reverse, a symbol of liberty, peace, and strength. The small d to the left of the torch indicates it was struck in Denver. On the surface, nothing seems unusual about this coin. It looks just like any other dime from the last few decades, but beneath the surface of this routine appearance lies something unexpected. A small number of 1994 D dimes were struck using a die that had a serious flaw. The result was a bold, unmistakable doubled image on the reverse. The torch appears slightly shifted. The branches seem to split at their edges. The lettering surrounding the design shows signs of being struck twice, slightly offset from the first impression. And in some cases, even the D mint mark appears doubled, creating a rare and extremely collectible variety. This kind of mint error is known in the numismatic world as a double die reverse. It occurs when the die that stamps the coin gets two impressions from the hub that are misaligned. When the die is then used to strike thousands of coins, the doubling appears clearly on every one of them. Most of the time, these errors are caught early and corrected. But occasionally, a few flawed dies make it into full production and go unnoticed. That's exactly what happened in 1994. But rarity alone doesn't create high value. A coin with this kind of error must also be in remarkable condition to attract serious attention from collectors. The highest prices are reserved for coins that are not only rare, but also crisp, brilliant, and untouched by circulation. Collectors look for coins that show no signs of wear, maintain their original luster, and exhibit a full, sharp strike point. One of the most coveted indicators of quality in Roosevelt dimes is something known as full bands. These are the horizontal lines across the torch on the reverse. When both sets of bands, at the top and bottom of the torch, are fully separated and defined, it means the coin was struck with exceptional precision. Most circulation dimes don't show full bands. It's a sign of a superior strike, and when paired with a dramatic mint error, it becomes a combination collectors dream of. For years, the 1994 D double die was known among specialists, but no truly high-grade examples had surfaced. Then, almost like a legend becoming real, a near-perfect specimen appeared. It had everything collectors could hope for: strong, visible doubling on the reverse, a sharply struck mint mark, brilliant mint luster, and fully defined bands across the torch. It had never been circulated. It had survived the years untouched. It was submitted to a leading grading service, where it received one of the highest possible mint state grades, along with the coveted full bands designation. Collectors immediately took notice. Error coins of this magnitude in this level of condition are incredibly rare. They're not just random mistakes, they're snapshots of a moment in minting history that wasn't supposed to happen. And when they survive in perfect shape, they become irreplaceable. Interest in the coin exploded. It went to auction, drawing the attention of advanced collectors from around the country. Competitive bidding pushed the price higher and higher. Everyone wanted to own what might be the finest known example of this rare error. Not just a 1994 D dime, but the 1994 D dime. A modern coin that defied expectations, captured the imagination of collectors, and rewrote what people thought a Roosevelt dime could be worth, and here's the reveal. That single 1994 D Roosevelt dime, struck with a bold double die reverse, showing possible doubling on the mint mark, blazing uncirculated luster, and perfect full bands, sold for an astonishing $48,000. Yes, a 10-cent piece, minted in 1994, brought in $48,000 at auction. Let that sink in for a moment. A small, ordinary-looking dime, a coin most people would toss into a change jar or spend without hesitation, turned out to be worth nearly $50,000. It's a reminder that extraordinary finds often hide in plain sight. That even modern pocket change can hold surprises no one saw coming. This coin wasn't ancient. It wasn't gold or silver bullion. It wasn't locked away in a collector's vault since the 1800s. It was modern, recent, and struck in a year familiar to many of us. That's what makes discoveries like this so thrilling. It proves that the hunt is still alive. That real treasures are still out there, waiting to be discovered by sharp eyes and curious hands. So the next time you come across a 1994 D Roosevelt dime, take a closer look. That small coin might just hold a secret. And who knows, you could be the one to uncover the next incredible find. Let's move on to the next coin that you've probably seen one before. In fact, you may have one sitting in your pocket, a drawer, or mixed into a roll of spare change. It's a Roosevelt dime, dated 2004, minted in Philadelphia. Just a small silver-colored coin, everyday currency for everyday use. Nothing about it seems unusual at first glance. But as we're about to discover, appearances can be incredibly deceptive. The Roosevelt dime has been in circulation since 1946, introduced to honor the legacy of President Franklin D. Roosevelt following his death in 1945. His leadership during the Great Depression and World War II, combined with his strong association with the March of Dimes campaign against polio, made him a natural choice for the 10-cent coin. Since its debut, the design has remained largely unchanged, the left-facing portrait of Roosevelt on the obverse, and on the reverse, the torch representing liberty, flanked by an olive branch for peace and an oak branch for strength. By 2004, more than half a century after its introduction, the Roosevelt dime had become one of the most commonly handled coins in the U.S. economy. That year, the Philadelphia Mint struck hundreds of millions of them, over a billion, in fact, when combined with other mint locations. They were produced rapidly, efficiently, and on a massive scale. So why would anyone think that a single dime from this sea of sameness could be worth anything more than its face value? The answer lies in one key word: error. Within that enormous batch of 2004 dimes, a very small number were struck using a damaged or misaligned die. These defects weren't cosmetic or caused by damage after the coin left the mint. They occurred during production, when one of the reverse dies, the metal stamp used to impress the design into blank planchets, received an imperfect impression from its master hub. That flaw created what's known as a double die, where the design appears slightly shifted and duplicated. It's not caused by a second strike from the press, as many believe. Instead, it happens when the die itself was manufactured with a duplicate layer of detail offset from the original. Once that faulty die went into production, it began producing coins with this doubling effect clearly visible on the reverse. On the 2004 Roosevelt P dime, this doubling affected the torch, the branches, and even portions of the lettering. Under magnification, you could see a ghost-like second image, bold enough to stand out to the trained eye. But without careful attention, this rare variety could easily slip through unnoticed. And that's exactly what happened. Most of these error coins went into circulation and vanished into the economy, mixed among the millions of ordinary dimes. But a very small number survived in exceptional shape, coins that were pulled from mint sets, sealed away by collectors, or simply never handled. One such coin was eventually discovered, not just with the double die reverse, but in stunning condition. This wasn't a worn, scratched dime pulled from a pocket. It was a pristine, mint-state specimen with blinding luster, sharp detail, and, most importantly, full bands. Now let's talk about that. Full bands is a grading designation that applies specifically to Roosevelt dimes. It refers to the horizontal lines on the torch on the reverse. When these bands are fully struck, clearly separated, and not blended together, the coin qualifies as full bands, or FB. That designation alone makes any Roosevelt dime more desirable, especially in higher grades. It shows that the coin was struck with full die pressure and survived without circulation. So imagine this, a 2004 Roosevelt dime with an extremely rare double die reverse, preserved in near perfect condition, and with flawless full bands. A modern coin, yes, but one that checks every box that collectors look for. The coin was submitted to one of the leading grading services in the country. When the results came back, the grading label confirmed what the finder had hoped. This was one of the finest known examples of its kind. Mint state. Full bands. Strong strike. Dramatic reverse doubling. That discovery sent waves through the collecting community. It was featured in error coin registries, discussed in forums, and sought after by those specializing in modern U.S. varieties. At auction, the excitement was palpable. Collectors recognized the opportunity, not just to own a rare error, but to own the finest example of a rare error from the modern minting era. The bidding began conservatively, but it didn't stay there. As more collectors jumped in, the price climbed steadily, and then sharply. This wasn't just about owning a coin, it was about acquiring a piece of numismatic history. A coin that proved that even in the era of advanced technology, perfect minting is still elusive. And that rare mistakes, when preserved, become priceless. And then came the final hammer price, that single 2004 Roosevelt P dime, bearing the rare double die reverse, preserved in blazing mint state with full bands and flawless surfaces, sold for an astonishing $33,000. Yes, $33,000. For a 10-cent piece minted in 2004. Think about that. This wasn't a 19th century rarity. It wasn't an ultra-low mintage silver issue. It wasn't something dug from an old shipwreck or found buried beneath decades of dust. This was a modern dime, one many people today may have spent without a second glance, and yet, because of a rare die error, because of its exceptional preservation, and because someone was observant enough to look closer, it became one of the most valuable Roosevelt dimes ever sold. Up next is a coin that proves the most remarkable treasures aren't always old, heavy, or made of gold. Sometimes, they're small, shiny, and hiding quietly in your pocket. Our final coin for today takes us to the year 2010 and spotlights a Roosevelt dime from the Denver Mint, a coin that, at face value, is just 10 cents, but one rare example has been valued by collectors at a stunning $24,000. Now, let's be honest, 2010 wasn't that long ago. In fact, many people still have coins from that year rolling around in their change jar or cash drawer. The Roosevelt dime was already long established by then, a familiar face in American pockets since 1946. That same left-facing profile of Franklin D. Roosevelt had already seen decades of circulation. It's the coin we use for parking meters, vending machines, and laundry. It's overlooked, used, and forgotten more than almost any other, but for coin collectors, that's exactly what makes it so exciting. Because every now and then, a coin like this breaks the mold. The 2010 Roosevelt dime, struck in Denver, was part of a routine production run. Millions upon millions were minted that year. The process was automated, fast, and efficient, designed to churn out coins for commerce. But even with today's technology, mistakes still happen. And when they do, the results can be spectacular. In this case, something went wrong during die preparation, the stage where the coin's design is etched into the steel tool that stamps the coin. One of the reverse dies ended up with what's called a double die error. This isn't a scratch, and it's not a random ding. It's an error that occurs deep in the minting process, a result of the die itself being struck more than once in slightly misaligned positions. The outcome? A reverse side where the torch, the branches, and even the letters show signs of doubling, clear enough to be seen without high magnification, but subtle enough to evade detection by most people. But here's the twist. Doubling alone is interesting, even desirable, but it's only part of the story. The real magic happened when this error appeared on a coin in nearly perfect condition. One example of this 2010 Roosevelt dime was found with an exceptional strike, flawless mint luster, and full original brilliance. And not just that, the coin showed full bands. Now, if you're not a specialist in dimes, full bands might not sound like a big deal. But in the world of Roosevelt dimes, it's a major feature. The torch on the reverse has horizontal bands at the top and bottom, and when those bands are completely separated and sharply struck, the coin earns the full bands designation. That means it was struck cleanly and strongly, with full detail. Finding any Roosevelt dime with full bands is a challenge. Finding one with full bands and a confirmed double die reverse is extraordinary. Finding one from 2010, a recent, high mintage year, that's also in gem condition. That's a 1 in a million kind of discovery. The person who found this coin wasn't digging through buried treasure or raiding an estate sale. They were simply reviewing coins, likely from a bank roll or a mint set, and happened to notice something different. A faint ghosting around the torch. A second outline near the lettering. A brightness to the surface that hinted this coin had never been spent. They sent it in for grading and authentication. The results came back: mint state, brilliant luster, full strike, full bands, and confirmed double die reverse. That was all the confirmation the collector needed. When the coin was appraised and reviewed by experts, its rarity and condition pushed it into elite territory. Collectors were stunned. How could a dime from 2010 be so rare, so valuable, and so overlooked? And yet, that's the beauty of coin collecting. It reminds us that incredible things often come in the most ordinary forms. What matters is having the curiosity to look, the patience to examine, and the eye to notice what others miss. This single dime, no different in size or shape from any other, became something truly special. It gained recognition, demand, and ultimately, a collector's value that nobody would have imagined. Its value? $24,000. Not because it's old. Not because it's made of silver or gold. But because it's rare, it's flawless, and it was struck with a 1 in a million mistake. That's the world of numismatics. Every coin has a story. Some stories stretch back hundreds of years. Others, like this one, are still unfolding. But all of them remind us to slow down, take a closer look, and never underestimate what we're holding in our hands. So, if you've got a jar of coins or a roll of dimes waiting to be searched, now's the time. Look for that small D mint mark from 2010. Inspect the torch and the branches. Check the bands. And if anything looks a little off, you might not just be holding a coin, you might be holding a discovery. And with that, we wrap up today's final rare dime feature. If you enjoyed exploring these hidden gems with us, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another treasure hunt. There's a whole world of coins still waiting to be uncovered, and we'll be right here to help you find them. Thanks for watching, and as always, happy collecting.